Listen, we all know by now, Mr. Negative, Sarah, Death, Wave, Hella, the meta, blah. It is obvious which cards can clearly dominate Marvel Snap between taking over locations in the games with their powerful abilities. But how about the cards that rarely anybody talks about? Well, good news for you. In today's video, I'm going to cover the top 10 underrated cards in Marvel Snap, the sleepers, the neglected, the downright most disrespected cards in the game. And yes, sure, I'm sure some of you guys that are watching do use them. The best part is a lot of these can fit into just about any deck to supercharge your personal deck, and most of them are very easy to obtain as well. These are my top 10 underrated cards, and if you feel like I missed one, go ahead and drop it in a comment down below. Teach me, teach others, and let's begin. Kicking this list off, we're going to start with our first card in Wasp. Guys, I think Wasp is severely underrated, mainly because she's got that 0 energy, 1 cost. Not the sexiest thing to show into your deck. However, a lot of people overlook the functionality of playing cards. She can create some powerful combinations with cards like Lockjaw that could throw her out there just to get another card out very quickly. Patriot can boost her up a ton. Angela can get free bonus power, and Carnage can swallow Wasp whole to go ahead and gain some extra points as well. It's not exactly about Wasp and like how underrated she is. It's how underrated her enabling is for other decks, if you will. She's our first card in today's top 10. Next up is my personal favorite. I think she is severely underrated, and I just so happen to have a very cool variant of her. Most of you guys are probably going to have this one, but Polaris is just such a great card for so many different reasons. She's a 3/5, which is a great cost to power ratio, but on top of that, she can be used to mess up synergy in locations a ton within the game. If you're going in like Space Throne, you can pull one of the cards over to put a useless card in their slot. Or my favorite, Bar with no name. Maybe they've got an Ebony Maw and you move him over as well. In addition to that, you can close locations and mess up maybe an Ant-Man synergy, or you can just straight up mess up their synergy, pull some cards over, and create some madness. Love Polaris, a little bit of a Magneto light. I would also throw Magneto in this list, but he's a bit more used commonly. Next is Colossus. Colossus is Mr. Dependent. I think he is highly overlooked and not used often enough, especially for the early game players. Colossus is one of those cards that if you don't know who to put in to finish off your deck, he's probably the correct answer. He's used in so many situations, and locations just don't bother the guy. If there's Death Domain, he can't be destroyed, or maybe some negative power locations, or things like Jotunheim. Colossus is Steady Eddie, is a 2/3, and I think he's a great card because of the ways that you can play him into your deck. I just think he's a great card. He's super dependable. He fits into most decks. And then when things are just not going your way, you know you can depend on old Reliable and Colossus here. And then, of course, he's great to use with Destroyer decks, and he's going to last you well into the late game. Fourth in our top 10 with no specific order, we've got Sandman. Now, Sandman he's not an attractive card. He's a 4-cost, 1 power, and it makes both of you only being able to use 1 card. Doesn't seem that great, but the good news is you can prep for it because he's in your deck where the enemy cannot. I think he's getting more use now, but he's underrated because he's great for tackling meta decks. He shuts them down. Mr. Negative is probably one of the biggest decks that he can shut down and is currently one of the best decks within the game. Sandman is often overlooked, and if you make the right deck, it can definitely complement you into a lot of wins. So I had a hard time deciding if I should put ShangChi in this list. Is he truly underrated? And I think I'm determining yes. If there's like a featured location like Gamma Lab with tons of Hulks, then you'll see him a ton, but I think he's often overlooked. He's a 4/3, but the power to go ahead and destroy a 9 power cost card, maybe even like Monster Island, you can get rid of their monster, or several other conditions and locations. I love ShangChi because maybe you've got a huge apocalypse on the other side, your opponent just played him. ShangChi snaps his fingers and he's dead. I think it's a very powerful and reliable counter to so many different decks as well. ShangChi is a great plug and play to put into your deck. Next up is Zero. Now, I don't know why Zero is so often overlooked, and I do get it. He does come with a little bit of a con, but if you guys saw our powerful combination video up above, you'll know that Zero is just a great card to play with other very powerful cards that have a little bit of a downside. The fact that he is a 1/3 is already great to have on turn 1, And then in addition to that, he can go ahead and make cards like Destroyer, a Red Skull, or even people like Maximus, Ebony Maw, a whole lot better. I think he's got great value. And then in addition to that, he can really win you the game just by playing him followed by Destroyer or so many different combinations. And then best of all, you don't have to play him. If you wait till the end of turn 6 and you have some extra leftover energy, play him then for a little bit of a 3 power boost to kind of edge the game into your favor. Let's go ahead and move on to the next card. But before we do that, guys, if you have not subscribed to Cozy Snap, go ahead and subscribe down below by clicking the red subscribe button, and you'll earn yourself better RNG when pulling for those pool 3 cards. Cozy guaranteed. And it obviously helps me a lot in the algorithm. Let's get to the next card. I just talked about him, so I might as well bring him up next. Ebony Maw just got himself a little bit of a touch-up, and I think that he's often underrated. I think Ebony Maw is very powerful. In the right conditions and in the right decks, he can actually win you the game. You can't play him till after turn 3. That's a little bit of the con if you pull him later, why a lot of people don't like him. But at a 1/7, he's so extremely powerful. There's so many ways to get around the downside of his ongoing effect, and there's locations to get rid of that as well. You can also kind of manipulate the enemy to force them to play a location, even if you don't want it, and then you just kind of let it be. Or you get the location that adds power after every turn. There's a lot of things that can buff him up, and giving you such a big power gap to start the match is absolutely huge. So for the next two, I'm going to go ahead and talk about 2 cards together. They are both 1 cost. That's why I'll keep them together. And I think they're both underrated. Obviously, we're going to start with Iceman, who I think is a great card to have in any deck. A lot of people struggle which 1 cost cards to have, and Iceman and the other one we'll talk about is the answer to that. I think both Iceman and Yondu are extremely underrated for what they can do. With Yondu, you can see kind of what deck your opponent is trying to make, or you can just straight up ruin their chances and get a free 1 cube if you kill like Hela or Mr. Negative on the appropriate decks. They're great to go ahead and give you a little bit of an advantage. They have decent power to them as well, and it can throw off massively what the opponent is trying to do. I think for 1 cost cards, these are the most overlooked by a long shot, and personally, some of my favorites that are in most of my decks. Which brings us to the last card in our top 10 underrated cards right now in Marvel Snap, and that is going to be Warpath. I think Warpath is an awesome card that I don't see enough of. Warpath can easily close down 1 location, and you can do a lot of cheeky things to ensure that you're not playing other cards at other locations. If you truly build a deck with him in mind that you're only going to focus on 2 locations, and you can early identify which location the enemy or the opponent is going for, he's sensational. He's very strong, a 4/9, and is often overlooked. All right, so there you have it. Those are the top 10 underrated cards in my book in Marvel Snap, guys. Again, I try to focus on cards that not a lot of people talk about. If I did miss one and you're like, hey, Cozy, how did you miss X? Put them down below in the comments. Would love to see your thoughts as well. If you want to see videos more like this one, subscribe today. Or if you want to watch me live stream, I am live 3 days a week, partnered over at Twitch under Cozy Gamer. Until next time, you guys have a beautiful day and stay cozy.